Welcome back, everybody, to our Financial and Administrative Services Committee. This will be our last committee meeting of the day. On this committee are myself, Mayor Clayton, Councillor Blackmore, we switched it up, Councillor O'Connor and Councillor Berg. So we'll get started with our service area update, and I'll look to Acting Chief Ms. Mesto to lead that in, please.
Thank you, Chair Plot. So for our service area update, I'll start with taxation and assessment. Tax has finished collection on the BIA and manufactured homes. Assessors are inspecting properties that have had permits taken out, and they're checking to see if the permits are completed. Penalty reminder letters will be going out to owners with outstanding balances to remind them of the upcoming January 1st penalty. In finance, the Q3 report will be presented later in the agenda. We also have the accounting staff working on month-end processes for October, and we are continuing to move through our budget process with deliberations set for next week, November 15th, 16th, and 17th. In procurement, they're preparing for year-end tasks, assisting departments with clearing up open purchase orders, and they have a few bids closing over the next week. In GIS and ITS, sales and marketing inventory management solution is implemented. The GP curling rink public Wi-Fi is now available, and council chamber technology upgrade is scheduled for the winter break. December 18th to January 5th is when they'll be working on that. And they are also working on their corporate IT annual inventory review. So,
okay.
That's all for the update today.
Any questions from committee? Seeing no hands go up, we'll refer back to you for our next item, our special tax and local improvements.
Okay.
Introduce that one, please, Ms. Nebesto.
Thank you, Chair Palat. We actually have the report that will be presented by our City Assessor, Mr. Scott Smith.
So thank you, Chair Palat. So the report before you now is about special levies and local improvements, and hopefully explains the difference between the two of them. So a special levy, or a special tax is what the MGA calls it, is a tax that can be imposed for a specific purpose. A special tax authorizes council to impose the tax to the properties in a specific area of the municipality that will actually benefit from the service. So a special tax bylaw must be passed annually, and the bylaw must state the purpose of the tax and identify the area of the municipality that will benefit from the service. The bylaw must also state the rate and the estimated cost of the service to be imposed. And the estimated cost must be included in our annual budget. The MGA states that a special tax can be levied for certain types of services, and those are, of course, listed in the report. As you're aware, the Pinnacle Fountain Levy is collected by a special tax, and that special tax was implemented in 2011 after overwhelming support from the neighborhood. There are no other special taxes levied in City of Grande Prairie, but there are a few special taxes scattered throughout the province. For example, Calgary is using a special tax for enhanced landscaping on boulevards, for a few select neighborhoods, and Edmonton is using a special tax for back alley lighting. Where a special tax is more for covering ongoing annual operating costs, a local improvement is for larger capital items where funds will be borrowed and then repaid over a period of time. Local improvements, they're very heavily legislated and a very lengthy process for administration to get into place. And then once a local improvement comes before council, a bylaw only has to be passed once. So projects such as paving, curb and gutters would be examples of local improvements. And then some examples where the City of Grande Prairie has implemented local improvements would be 124th Avenue, where it was paved from 100th Street to 102nd Street. And then one of the larger ones would have been the paving of Richmond Industrial Park. So just to summarize for council or for committee, a special tax would be more for the annual operating costs of an item, and that bylaw would have to be passed annually, whereas a local improvement is for the larger capital items, and you'd only have to pass the bylaw once. Both, we find, are typically owner-initiated. They come to council to request these services. And with that, I'll try to answer any of your questions.
Okay, thanks for that, Mr. Smith. Councillor Berg first.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Mr. Smith. One of the things that I'm curious about when we reference local, what are the guidelines and determining factors on what is local? Because we can think of a number of projects that would go in a specific neighborhood but would benefit the neighboring neighborhoods as well.
That's through the chair. It's a very tough thing. That's why it's typically owner initiated. Usually a group of owners will come to council and say, we would like this, and then it goes from there. To select, using the Pinnacle one as an example for a special levy, that was brought to us by the neighborhood after overwhelming support. They had, I believe 700 signatures, and there's about 650 to 700 properties within that neighborhood.
Okay, so more often than not, these are initiated by neighborhood associations.
That would be correct.
Great, thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Berg. Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you, Councillor Plott. I have a couple of questions. One is the City of Edmonton, I think, also uses a special tax on their neighborhood association areas for summer programming for children. Did they not mention that? Because I thought that was their biggest special tax they had.
Through the chair, I'm not 100% sure. They did not mention that when they talked to them. They mentioned the back alley one. The other one, I'm not sure if it's passed by special tax that's popular in Edmonton, is the sidewalk rehabilitation in certain neighborhoods. And I'm not sure if that's done through local improvement or the tax base or a special levy. But in regards to the children programming, I've not heard of that.
Okay. Local improvement levies. The piece of road that approaches the recycling center that's graveled, I know that at one time there was a proposal to pave that using a local improvement levy. The three businesses that front that rejected that. If we choose to go ahead with the local improvement levy there again, or to make that attempt, would there be a time frame between when we were there last time and another ask that we would have to hold back on?
If I can, through Chair Plott, I can't exactly remember when that was proposed, but through my reading of the MGA, I don't see any timelines. The reason it would have got rejected is probably they had more than 2/3 of the property owners reject the...
Well, and that is what happened. Yeah. The property owners there have changed since that time, and so I'm wondering if that is now an appropriate time to try and fix a road that, in my opinion, is an embarrassment to the city.
We can look into it to see if there is a timeline, but I don't believe there is.
Thanks for the question on that. We'll go to Councillor O'Connor and then Mayor Clayton.
Yes, if there are no further questions, I'll go to business. So I'll let the mayor get in.
Okay, Mayor Clayton, and then I'll call my own number and I'll come back to you on that, Councillor O'Connor.
Thanks. Mr. Smith, or possibly Chief Glavin, can somebody remind me if we've ever had consultation in regards to the interest of a levy on paving the road? I don't know how to describe it by the street address, but it's over by Standard Auto Glass, runs north to south. Mr. Glavin and I have spoke about it before. I don't know the actual street address. I apologize.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Clayton. So we have had some interest from at least one owner on that area, and we provided them information on how to commence a local improvement. We have not heard back from them since, but it would be 101st Street, I think north of 124th or 128th would be the location.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, thank you.
I'll come back to you in a minute, Councillor O'Connor. So I appreciate the report coming back in such a this quick turnaround time. So I really appreciate that, and the difference between the two. So my mind's going more to the local improvements, and I guess what I'm wondering, and I appreciate in the report, they're legislated and time consuming, but I'm wondering if there's an opportunity for our city to be starting to work towards these within quarter sections of land. And my thought was specifically more around parks and improvements to those areas. And I'll think about O'Brien and a community I live in right now, where there's a a capital ask for a boardwalk on one side of it. You know, as great as those are to have, they really are just for that local community, in my opinion. And so I'm just wondering if there's a way we can start moving towards those kind of conversations using local improvements. You know, if we're going to decommission parks and put parks back in and out of an area just because we have a plan versus whether the community wants it, I think we need to start empowering some neighborhood associations, is my personal opinion on this. And so I think by trying to work towards local improvements, we have the ability to do that. And so I guess when I read heavily legislated and very time consuming for administration, I don't want this to be a nightmare, burdensome nightmare, but I also would like to figure out how we can start having a quarter section of land and neighborhood associations that are empowered already start actually looking after their own spending in that area, instead of us just assuming that we're going to copy and paste and put a park in or put a boardwalk or those kind of things in. Explain to me how legislatively heavy or what steps would have to look like for us to actually start saying this quarter section of land wants this amenity. It's really only for that quarter section of land, and how we can move forward with that.
I'll try to answer my best. Typically, when it gets to levying the tax, the work has already been done by engineering departments, planning development, and so forth and so forth. Basically, it starts with the community engagement, I would say. So through our consultation with that neighborhood, specifically if they're making that request, it would be up to administration to come forward with those estimated costs of borrowing, etc. How many years do we want to levy and collect that back? It's basically cost recovery for those capital items is that we'd be looking for. And then, of course, you need the majority of the neighborhood to get on board with that.
Okay. And I guess just to explain this further for me, one of the things I think are, unfortunately for the city of Grande Prairie, we compare to a lot of other municipalities that have a lot more condos and homeowners associations, and a lot of those costs are borne by them that are outside of their taxes. And so we'll never be able to get a fair comparison to some communities, but I do think this is a tool in our toolbox that I appreciate it could be work. I'm thinking of the Signature Falls last term, did an amazing park recovery, and they were able to leverage a lot of money from the community to put that park in. And my fear is if the city is involved with that and we don't start empowering our neighborhood associations, we'd lose that opportunity to leverage that funding. And also a community that might come back and say, we don't care about the park if it's going to have a tax implication. Or we do care about a park and we actually want to make it better and have a higher tax implication. So I think this is a tool that we could put in the toolbox at some point. So I appreciate the information for now, and I'll give this some more thought. I don't want to make it an onerous nightmare, but I do think it's something we're not potentially utilizing as much as I think we could for our community and empower some neighborhood associations. With that, I'll go back to Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, thank you, Chair Palat. I'd like to move that committee receive this report for information.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor O'Connor. Please vote.
Mayor Clayton in favor.
Councillor Palat in favor. That carries unanimously. Thanks for that. So next we'll go to the tax recovery sale, and I'm assuming it's back to you, Mr. Smith, on that one as well?
It is. So thank you again, Chair Palat. So this report is to set our 2022 tax recovery sale, and as you'll see within the report, it contains 3 recommendations. As you're aware, this is an annual report that we bring forward, and this is a legislative process that we must follow. This recovery process started in March of 2022 and will wrap up in March of 2024 with the tax sale. At 32 properties, this is one of the lowest number of properties that we've had that are eligible for the tax sale at time of preparing the report for council. However, administration must add an additional 40 properties that have defaulted on payment arrangements from 2019, 2020, and 2021 tax recovery process. So that'll make 72 properties eligible for the tax sale. These 72 properties represent a little over $1.8 million in receivables. Typically on the day of the sale, most accounts have been brought up to date either by the owner or the mortgage company. So very seldom does a property end up going forward for auction. With that, Chair Palat will ask committee recommend council approve the 3 recommendations contained within the report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks for that, Mr. Smith. Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Palat. And Mr. Smith, I ask this every year, but I think it's great to remind the public. We have not had a sale in a number of years. Is that correct?
That's correct. With my years with the city, I've seen 2 properties go forward to auction
And how far back does that go?
to 1995.
Okay, beautiful. I do see some exceptions this year that I hadn't seen in the previous couple of years. I'm assuming that these large clumps or gatherings of land are part of a bankruptcy or insolvency?
Through Chair Palat, that's correct. It's typically one owner, and it's the majority of the ones that have come forward from the previous years that we have to add.
Okay. Now, you'd mentioned typically these are covered by the owner, which has not done so. Mortgage holder, are we worried about these particular plots of land in any way, shape, or form?
No, not at this moment.
Great. Okay, thank you.
And I see no other questions up. So, Councillor Berg, you had mentioned business arising.
Yes, I would like to move that committee recommend council approve the following. Those properties subject to 2022 tax recovery notification as per the attached list be offered for sale by public auction, that the auction be held at the first floor North Conference Room at City Hall on Friday, November 15th, 2024 at 9 a.m. and that the reserve bids for the 2022 tax recovery sale be set as per the attached Appendix D.
Okay, thanks for that lengthy motion.
Sorry, March 14th? March 15th. Oh, sorry. So I'm going to correct that. I'll start that the auction be held in the first floor North Conference Room at City Hall on Friday, March 15th, 2024 at 9 a.m.
Thanks for that motion. It's in order. If you could please vote.
Mayor Clayton in favor.
Councillor Plott in favor. Thanks for that, Mr. Smith. Appreciate that. Move on to our next item, our Q3 2023 financial statements, and I'll look to Acting Chief Ms. Nebesto for that, please. Ms. Nestebo, sorry.
Thanks, Chair Plott. Okay, so being presented today is the unaudited financial statements and the supporting information for the period ending September 30th, 2023. Detailed statements and information are included in the appendix, which is attached in your agendas. The city has maintained a net financial asset position and an accumulated surplus position. So this indicates that there are sufficient resources to support current and future services. Operating variances are included on page 5 and 6 of the appendix. Administration is forecasting a $1.3 million shortfall for the 2023 year end, which is 0.66% of the city's operating budget. This is a significant improvement over the previous quarter's forecast, which was a $2.7 million shortfall. Departments continue to encounter ongoing cost pressures, and as such, administration has been actively monitoring the situation and considering and implementing strategies to reduce the shortfall by year end. All departments have contributed to the improved forecast through temporarily reducing costs where appropriate. A significant portion of the ongoing shortfall can be attributed to the ongoing decrease in court fine revenues, below budget tenant and grant funding revenues for the Coordinated Care Campus, and below budget building permit revenues, all of which were previously noted in the presentation of the Q2 report. You will note that there's a summary of capital projects included on page 9 of the appendix. So adjustments related to the mid-year budget requests are now reflected in this report. They previously weren't included in the detail of Q2 just due to the timing of the approvals. Q4 will again include the detailed project level reporting that you saw in Q2. The city also continues to maintain our long-term debt and debt servicing limits within the provincially prescribed parameters and in line with city policy. This is reflected on page 11 of the appendix. So this concludes my summary of the Q3 financial report. The recommendation as noted in the report is committee recommends council receive the unaudited financial statements and supporting information for the period ending September 30th, 2023 for information. Thank you, Chair Plott.
Thanks for that report. Go to questions. We'll go to Councillor.
I will move.
Sorry, Councillor Berg, and then I can come to you after that, Councillor O'Connor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Palat. So just a couple questions as I go through this. The overall health, I'm quite satisfied with that in the report, so thank you. Just again around the potential shortfall for this fiscal year. A couple of things. I guess the reality is last year we should have done approximately a 3% budget increase as opposed to 1.7, but that's more of a comment than a question. Just making a mental note or note as we go into the budget going forward. The one oddity, though, through this year that tapped a lot of our resources through our staff and emergency services were the two GPREP emergencies around the fires in the county and then the fires up in the Northwest Territories. Just for the public record, those do not impact our fiscal health in any way, shape, or form. In fact, that money is all recovered.
So through the chair, so for GPREP activations, we will recover through a application process. So two different processes for the two different activations, but yes, that is the idea. That is, there will not be a financial impact for the city specifically.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Berg. Actually, I'm going to, Councillor O'Connor, do you have questions or are you trying to do business here?
I just had a question in regards to how the departments are coming up, and it looks like every department is trying to find ways and efficiencies in the department. Is that correct?
So through the chair, yeah, that's correct. Departments have been working with their chiefs in their service areas to see what type of temporary reductions would be feasible for each department. So,
and I'm assuming that because of the fires and our staff was so engaged with that, they have not had time to catch up to that. And am I correct in assuming that?
Sorry, through the chair. Sorry, could you clarify the question, Councillor?
I just feel that because of the amount of time spent on both fires, that our staff worked in that area, weren't able to look at these close enough, and now they're getting the chance to do that.
Ms. Nestable?
Obviously, I'm not clear on what I'm asking.
Sorry. So through the chair, are you looking for if it's a clarification on timing as to when they could look for what we could do for temporary reductions? And so,
yes.
So with the initial activation that happened in May, that would have been prior to Q2, and then the activation in August and September for the NWT evacuees. Potentially could have had some impact, but I believe that administration worked with their departments to find the reductions that they could in that time. So I'm not sure that that was necessarily impacted by the August activation.
Okay. Thank you. I was just curious on that. So if you're prepared for me to do business, I will do business.
I think there's still a few questions in chamber, so I can come back to you if you'd like, Mr.
Okay.
Councillor O'Connor.
Sure. Thank you.
Councillor Blackmore?
Chair Plot. I have a question of curiosity, I suppose, more than anything. That on page 4, under expenditures, provision for allowances is significantly less than it was last year. And I'm wondering why that is, and I'm not really sure what provision for allowances encompasses in this presentation.
Through the chair, so we're looking at provision for allowances under expenditures, the $4,000 year to date.
Correct.
I don't know off the top of my head, but that is something that I could look up for you.
I'll let you get back to me, and email is fine for that. It's good because it's significantly less money outflowing, so that's a positive. So I look forward to your email. I had another question, but I can't remember what it is. So if I think of it, I will get back to you at a later time.
Thanks for that, Councillor Blackmore. I'm just going to, a couple questions I had. Just on our housing and homelessness, we're showing quite a large deficit in that. And I'm just, do we have a sense of scale in how that looks going forward into 2024? Is this a red line item that we should be concerned about continually, or is this just a, you know, was it where we ran short and we're comfortable that we're going to fill this property up and get the revenue we want to achieve?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll tackle that one. So we've had a lot of ups and downs in that particular area with regards to some delays with the CCC and some staffing, moving some staffing around. So we are bringing a report back, I think probably in 2 or 3 weeks with regards to the actual budget for the CCC. Now that is still work in progress because we're not in. We were hoping we'd have been in the facility fully for a month or two before the end of the year. That's not happening. However, I think we have a pretty good feel for where we're going to be at. So we'll be bringing back a detailed budget on that particular item, which is a big part of housing and homeless initiatives. There'll be an opportunity then for council to get clarity on that.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chief Lemieux. I know it's been an ongoing process and it's a new process, so it's not something it's easy to set numbers off the start. So I appreciate that report coming back. My other question is around the community knowledge campus and seeing the deficit there. Not something that we intended on, but I know through COVID, when we shut the East Link facility, we actually seen quite a surplus on that. And I'm just curious with closing the facility, how we didn't see some savings on lifeguards and some of those other areas, or were those bodies deployed somewhere else and that we kept retaining when we were paying them?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So certainly the shutdown did have an impact, and it's something we were planning for, but the shutdown ended up being longer than we expected. Certainly there was a cost savings on casual staff, but we kept our full-time staff on because we needed to catch up on a whole bunch of training and a whole bunch of other items. So many of our staff we kept on.
Okay. So it's a little different scenario than COVID. That's the questions I had. So if somebody wanted to do business arising, if I can come back to you, Councillor O'Connor, for that. Unless there's any other, I don't see any other questions in the chambers. So, Councillor O'Connor.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to move that committee recommend council receive the unaudited financial statements and supporting information for the period ending September 30th, 2023 for information.
Thanks to that, Councillor O'Connor. Any question or debate? So please vote.
Mayor Clayton in favor.
Councillor Plott in favor. And that carries unanimously. Thanks for that. And so our last item of business is our outstanding item list, and I'll go back to Acting Chief Nestabo again for that, please.
Thank you, Chair. So for the outstanding items list, I have an update for item 1296. So that was presented today by Mr. Scott, Smith under agenda item 3.2. To my knowledge, there are no other updates required to the outstanding items list at this time.
Okay, so thanks for just the one change on that. Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Palat. I would like to move the committee receive the November 7th outstanding items list as amended for information.
Okay, thank you for that. If we could please vote. Councillor Plott in favor.
Mayor Clayton in favor.
And that carries unanimously. And with that, we will adjourn. Thanks, everybody.